In parallel with the development of the Big Five scale of personality traits, psychologist Albert Bandura identified a separate trait he referred to as self-efficacy. Writing in 1977, Bandura described his concept. His initial theory has grown into what is often now referred to as social learning theory. Under this theory, people's psychological experiences over time lead them to develop a set of expectations about their own capacity to carry out difficult or challenging tasks. If, over time, one learns a strong sense of self-efficacy, he or she will then be willing to take on difficult tasks based on the perception that he or she has the innate ability to succeed in the task. By contrast, those who have learned that their efforts often lead to failure will have a low sense of self-efficacy and are more likely to give up early in the process of confronting a difficult task. Bandura described 4 sources from which individuals take cues as to whether they will or won't be able to succeed in a task. The first is through past experience, in which those who have repeatedly experienced success in past efforts will learn a higher sense of self-efficacy. By contrast, those who have had repeated experience with failure will learn low self-efficacy. The second source is called vicarious experiences. By watching others that we perceive as comparable to ourselves succeed in a given task, we then expect to be able also to succeed in our own efforts in a similar task. Bandura refers to the third source as verbal persuasion. Hearing someone we respect tell us we are capable of doing a task will make us more likely to believe that we can actually do it. Finally, emotional arousal can affect perceived self-efficacy, with those experiencing higher stress levels when confronted with a difficult task more likely to perceive low levels of self-efficacy, and vice versa. Self-efficacy is an important psychological trait because once one has learned a certain level of self-efficacy, one's perceptions tend not to change over time when confronted by new tasks. In addition, people will respond differently to difficulties or initial failures experienced in the process of taking on a task, with those with lower levels likely to attribute their difficulty to their own inadequacy rather than to the innate difficulty of the task or other external factors. A low sense of self-efficacy, coupled with a pattern of repeated failures over time, can lead to what has been called learned helplessness. Why even try something if you already know you're going to fail? In a later paper, Bandura tied self-efficacy to the educational attainment of children. As he describes in that paper, students' beliefs in their efficacy to regulate their own learning and to master academic activities determine their aspirations, level of motivation, and academic accomplishment. Based on these associations, students who approach academic tasks with a high level of self-efficacy will visualize themselves succeeding at the task, while those with low self-efficacy will often see failure as the likely outcome. Bandura cites a study that measured the association between children's initial self-efficacy and their performance on a difficult mathematics task. As expected, those with higher self-efficacy perform better on the assignment. However, the positive impact of self-efficacy helped in more than one way. In addition to performing better, these students also tried harder, showing increased persistence in working through a difficult problem. This increased persistence added even more to their performance. It was a combination of the student's belief in her or his capacity to complete the problem combined with a willingness to persist in searching for a solution that contributed to the higher level of success. Bandura cites an additional relationship that is concerning for those interested in finding ways to help children, especially those children from disadvantaged backgrounds, to improve their sense of self-efficacy. He cited data indicating that when a teacher has a low perception of a student's academic or personal efficacy, that student is likely to internalize that lower expectation in viewing their own self-efficacy. A further difficulty comes from the observation that in schools serving a predominantly low SES community, having had past experiences with lower socioeconomic students often increases a teacher's perception that her or his students enter the classroom with initial low levels of self-efficacy.